Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, fabulous listeners and viewers. I'm Andy Lyons, and you're tuning in to a special live episode of Don't Be Caged by Your Age. And if you're new here, this podcast is all about shattering age-related expectations, celebrating pro-aging, and proving that life after 60 is just the beginning. Let me just get the clappers out for that. Come on. Now, normally I only interview guests 60 and older, but today we're shaking things up. This episode is an intergenerational conversation because the pro-aging movement isn't just for those of us who hit 60 plus, folks, okay? It's for everyone who believes in shifting the narrative around aging. And today's guest is living proof that you don't have to be over 60 to champion this cause. So get ready for an insightful, inspiring, and thought-provoking conversation. Please don't hesitate to drop a comment in the comment threads, share your thoughts, say hello, and let's make this live episode an interactive experience, okay? So I'm going to be introducing you to a phenomenal woman. I'm going to give you a little brief bio first because she has incredible experience and credibility in our industry. I'm so thrilled to welcome Corinne Auman, PhD, to this special live episode. Corinne is a developmental psychologist, keynote speaker, and the founder of Choice Care Navigators, where she empowers seniors and their families to navigate the complexities of aging with confidence and clarity. A former college professor specializing in adulthood and aging, Corinne has dedicated her career to reshaping the way we think about growing older. She's also the author of Keenagers, telling a new story about aging, a powerful book that challenges outdated narratives and highlights the opportunities that come with age. With her expertise in geriatric care management and anti-aging advocacy, Corinne is the perfect guest for this intergenerational conversation, how we all rethink and redefine age at any stage of life. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to welcome to Don't Be Caged by Your Age, the one and only Dr. Corinne Auman. Clappers, everybody. Woo!
Thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Oh, I'm so happy you're here. And hello to a few of the viewers tuning in right here. Hello, Dr. Beth. She says, looking forward to this episode. Yay, Andy. And hi, Dependra. I'm so happy you're tuning in as well. And the goddess of goddesses, Mia Voss. So excited to catch this episode live. So happy you're here. You're going to love everything that Dr. Corinne shares. I want to remind everyone that if you're interested, I'm going to be giving away Dr. Corinne's book, Keenagers, today. So enter the giveaway. Post the word pro-aging in the comments, and I'll do a spin at the end of the show, and someone's going to be a lucky winner, which we just love. So before we get started, Dr. Corinne, please share with everybody where you're hailing from. And because we're all about aging out loud and proud, please share with everyone your age. How long has the world been enjoying your presence?
So I'm 49. I'll be 50 in April.
Yay.
And I am hailing from Greensboro, North Carolina.
Oh my gosh. Wonderful part of the world. Everybody safe and okay? Were you hit with hurricanes or anything?
No, that was in the mountains. So about 2 hours west of me.
Yay. And Mia Voss is on it. Pro-aging. There we go. Right there. And hi, Amy. Amy lives on the border of West Virginia and North Carolina. Hi, Amy. So happy to see a fellow podcaster and see Dr. Beth. She's in it to win it right there too. Pro-aging. Here we go with that. So Dr. Corinne, now that we know where you're hailing from and what you've been up to as far as the bio that I just shared, please share what inspired you to pursue a career focused on aging and empowering others to navigate this stage of life. Was there a personal experience or a pivotal moment that led you down this path? Please let everyone know.
So I think myself, like a lot of people who get into the gerontology field, I was inspired by my own relationship with my grandparents, which it's very interesting to me because if you ask people like who's their favorite relative, who's the favorite person, that they always wanted to spend time with, often people will talk about their grandparents and how much they love them and how great that relationship was. And yet somehow when we think about older people in general, we don't, it's almost, we love our grandparents, but then we have all these negative ideas about older people in general. There's this mismatch between those two experiences. But I grew up living right next door to my grandparents. And when my grandfather passed away, my mother and her sister suddenly became caregivers for my grandmother who had dementia. And they did not realize how bad it was until he passed away, because he had been doing such a good job of protecting her and kind of taking care of her. So they got thrown into caregiving, trying to navigate that overnight. And I watched them do that from the time I was in 8th grade all the way through till when she passed away, when I was a junior in college. And it was a really difficult experience for my mom and her sister. And that made me think, why isn't there somebody who helps you with this? Why isn't there somebody who helps you navigate these pathways, figuring out how to care for these people that you love? So I go on, I get my degree. I study developmental psychology and adulthood and aging. I teach at colleges and universities. And then in 2012, I finally looked at my husband and said, if I'm ever going to start a business helping people navigate these things, it is time for me to do that. And so in 2012, I started the business, and that's how we got here to where I am now.
I love that. And congratulations on being a female founder. Those who know and love me know how much I love championing and amplifying a female founder out there. So congratulations. And yeah, I want to say hi to Dr. Krista. How are you, Dr. Krista? Thanks for tuning in. And the one and only Marian, who has a wonderful podcast called Message in the Middle. And it is such important work, Marian. You're absolutely right. And for folks who are tuning in, I just want to remind you that I'm going to have a giveaway. I'm going to give away Dr. Corinne's book, Keenagers, today. So type the word pro-aging in the comments and you'll be entered to win. Just go throw that out for a while. So what I also really love about your story is that you had that firsthand up-close experience, Corinne, with what was working and was not working in our system for aging and aging in a way that feels good and helpful. So you went into the caregiving aspect of it, but what started to light you up about this pro-aging aspect? Because I got to tell you, as a woman who's 68 years old, I go into the medical establishment and I have to raise their awareness, let's say, when they start talking to me, from the infantilization that I hear to the not asking to get all the right tests done, things like that. I mean, there's enough work just there.
Mm-hmm.
But you've gone more about the indoctrination, society's indoctrination, and of these incredible ageist beliefs for this time period. How did you make that shift?
So it has been a personal journey. When I started the business in 2012, I really thought I was going to be working with 40-year-olds who were caring for 70-year-old parents. And this shows my own misunderstanding. What I actually do is work with 70-year-olds who are caring for their 90-year-old parents. And that realization, that, so I have all this training, I have all this background in working with older adults and in aging, and my thought process on who I was going to work with and who they were going to be was completely off. And so if I, with all my expertise, right, I'm going to put that in quotes, was so wrong about what the aging experience was like, who was going to be the caregiver and who was going to be the care recipient. If I had such misguided beliefs, then so does everybody else.
That's right.
And so that's what has sent me down this path of, we've got to reframe, we've got to shift our aging, or the way we're thinking around aging, because it's not what it used to be and it's not what we think it is.
That's right. We have a lot of doctors in the house today. I just pulled up Dr. Natalie, I'm so happy you're here. Yay. And of course, we had Dr. Krista throwing out the pro aging for the free copy of the book, the giveaway. Yay. And Jeanette Liardi, hello. You see what's behind me here? That book, everybody, similar to the colors I'm wearing on my blouse, isn't it? Aging Sideways, a phenomenal, phenomenal book. So, Corinne, like what an awakening, because even I'm having that adjustment right here. You're right, because sometimes I often forget how old I am. And you're right, taking care of aging parents, you often hear people talking about, their 90-year-old parents in their 90s. My mother lived to be 96, my father 101. So of course, right, there's that part of the whole aging process. And so how did you begin this journey to shift from holding these indoctrinated ageist beliefs to embracing the pro-aging perspective? And how are you helping folks dissolve them, not just for yourself, right, but for others as well? Because I know people are having you speak, and you do phenomenal, phenomenal Instagram videos. And everyone, please, please, please follow Dr. Corrine on Instagram. She is laying it down really well on just the language that we're constantly using that prevents us from really celebrating aging. So I know that was a long question. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. The thing that it is an inside job. I think that's the number one thing. Like when you start paying attention to ageism and start thinking about the thoughts you have in your own head, like when you say, I'm too old to wear that, or, should I be coloring my hair, or whatever the question is, stopping to realize, why do I even think that? Right? Like, why is that even an issue? Or when somebody, you start to hear people around you and the things they say, and you think, why would they say that?
Right.
Why do they have to when somebody says you look great for your age, why can't we just say you look great? Why do we have to bring age into it? So it really is an inside job in terms of noticing, paying attention. And then once you do, you'll start seeing the kind of ageist comments and things everywhere around you. And you're like, oh, wait. And I still catch myself. I mean, it is a continued experience in the sense, my husband and I went to New York here a few weeks ago, and I had my AirPods and they wouldn't connect to my phone. And I was getting frustrated. And I said, oh, these are my old AirPods, they're old and cranky. And my husband, who, listens to me talk all the time, looked at me and said, that's ageist, right? I was like, okay. So, and again, we're not going to be perfect because we are in a very ageist culture that has kind of indoctrinated us with these messages from a very young age. So you have to start paying attention, and then you have to just kind of keep paying attention, as you go, and catch yourself when you do that.
And how did that old and cranky come together? Because nobody's crankier than a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old, right? I mean, come on, or forget that. Yes. Teenagers.
Oh yeah.
They win the award for cranky pants. So
absolutely.
How is it that we got, we're oftentimes much more patient? I bet Jeanette has the answer to that as well. How is it that, and you and I were talking ahead of time, and those of Natalie and Amy, who were with me when this happened, a perfectly well-meaning, delicious man in his 40s, when we were going around the table, turned to a good friend of ours and said, okay, young lady, where are you at? And I had to use that moment as a learning opportunity to say, with all due respect, and we know you meant it as a compliment because that's how you've been indoctrinated. But Julie's about to turn 55, folks. Okay. She deserves the respect that comes from the age. You would never say young man to a man in his 50s, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So talk a little bit, not only about those comments, Corinne, but also how do we raise everybody's consciousness in a nice way? Because, it's not easy.
It's not easy. And I want to just tell you a quick story about the indoctrination, because I do think we want to let ourselves off the hook a little bit. And as we start listening to other people and, commenting on the things that they may say, we have to give them a little grace, in the sense that this has been part of our culture, part of our experience from the very beginning. So I took my daughter, she was 12 at the time, to a Bruce Springsteen concert. And, Bruce is in his 70s and he's up there, playing the guitar, having a great time. It's a great show. And we're driving home afterwards and we're talking to the kids. How did you like the show? And my daughter said, he at the end of the show, he kind of tore open his shirt, right? And, was playing his guitar with his shirt hanging open, that sort of stuff. And he's in really good shape. And she said, he shouldn't have torn open his shirt like that at the end of the show. And I was like, oh, okay, why not? And she said, because he's a dirty old man. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And because she has me as a mother, right? First of all, I'm like, how dare you? This is the boss that we're talking about.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's still 1984 for us, okay?
And then second of all, I said, why would you say that? And she said, well, he just is. He's an old man. So he's a dirty old man and he shouldn't be, opening his shirt like that. But I think that is such a perfect example of how we are indoctrinated into these thoughts from a very early age. I have not taught her that. My husband hasn't taught her that. The culture has taught her that along the way. And it might even be hard to pinpoint exactly where it came from. But by 12, that is one stereotype that she already has. And she probably has more. But that, it was just
by
so
12.
Clear. So we do have to give ourselves grace on this, because we are taught these kinds of beliefs from a very early age. I think it is a little easier for me to comment or call people out when they say things because of kind of my public stance on it. And so I can kind of jokingly say, you remember what I do, right? You remember the book I wrote and that kind of thing. And they'll go, oh yeah, that was ageist, wasn't it? And we can kind of joke and laugh. But I do think even in moments when people are saying things, you did such a good job in your example. You said, with all due respect, and we know you meant it as a compliment, but that's maybe not the right thing to say, because you would not say that to a 55-year-old man. And just trying to point it out while also being respectful and giving them some grace about, this is the way we've all been taught. We don't even think about it.
You just have to go into your drugstore, CVS, Walgreens, wherever you're doing, and you check out the cards, and they're filled with over the hill is a bad thing comments. Mm-hmm. And I know when we had Sarah Hart on the show, she was like, please don't be buying those cards, everyone, because we can't be perpetuating this myth about aging being awful. Mm-hmm. And so I want to share your book with folks. Let me just bring up a quick screen share for everybody. So Corinne, talk about your book, Keenagers, telling a new story about aging. What prompted you to write it and bring it to us this way?
So it's interesting. I thought about writing a book, and I'm in care management, and I thought I was going to write a book about care management and kind of the do's and don'ts. And there is some of that in the book, but what I realized along the way in writing it and thinking about my own experiences is that a lot of what keeps people from preparing for their aging, planning for their aging, thinking ahead, doing all the things that we might need to do to have a great older adulthood, the thing that keeps them from doing that is the fear of aging. It's the ageism, the internalized ageism, because it's this, well, aging is something that's happening to other people. It's not happening to me.
Right.
Or it's not, that's something old people do. It's not something I do, which is, of course, ridiculous, right? You and I will be older at the end of this interview than we were at the beginning. It's cool. Everybody's doing it. But that internalized fear keeps people from doing their wills, doing their powers of attorney, figuring out what retirement community they might like, renovating their home to make it age friendly, making an appointment with somebody like me to do their care planning for what they want as they get older, having conversations with their family members about, hey, here's what I would like, or here's what I would not like in my future. And again, it's that fear. And if people, the book is telling a new story about aging. If people had a more accurate perception of what older adulthood was like and how much there is to look forward to, how much your perception of your own aging matters in terms of how well your experience will go, that belief system, that's the thing. Like, you've got so much to look forward to, and you've got so much control that people don't embrace because they're just afraid. We just kind of bury our heads in the sand and we go, oh yeah, I'll think about that when I get there. And I'm not old. How dare, anybody infer that I'm old? And yeah, so the whole point of the book is to give you examples of people who are doing it well, help you find mentors to go, oh yeah, that's how I'd like to do my older adulthood. And what do you need to do to prepare? What are some of the steps that need to be taken to make this happen and get what you want? It should be empowering to think about your aging, not scary.
Oh my gosh. And what I love too is on Instagram, everybody, you can see it at Keenagers Book. Hop on over. Corinne, you're constantly putting out the wisdom from your book. Examples. So why not give us a few examples now, please, of some circumstances where maybe you saw a shift happen, or you threw just some slight mentorship, or like we do here on the podcast, constantly showing folks thriving after 65 as a way to amplify what it can look and feel like. Please give us a few examples from the book.
So the thing that comes to mind most readily is this idea, helping people shift their idea that it's all downhill or that it isn't happening to me. And a lot of the examples in the book are interviews with people who've gone through that shift, right? Who've had some sort of experience, also often through their own caregiving for aging loved ones, where they went, oh, this is going to happen to me, and I can make this good or bad. And here's how I'm going to make my choices for what I'm going to do post 60, post 65, and then what they're doing. I mean, I've got people in the book that are caregiving. I've got people in the book who are running nonprofits that they started after they, quote, retired. I've got people who are still working full time, just lots of different things, but they all kind of have moments where they went, oh, I get to choose this, right? Aging doesn't just happen to me. I get to choose.
Oh, that is so wonderful. I'm just going to say hi to a few folks tuning in. Hello, Denise Drinkwalter. How you doing? She was been interviewed here on the show, on the podcast. Does a lot of great work helping women get into that midlife with vim, vigor, and enjoyment and purpose and passion. And she's saying time to help re-educate. And that is a good thing to do, isn't it? So glad you are having this conversation. And hi, Pedro, how you doing? The internalized fear of aging is a great way to frame it. It really is, because we have these thoughts that keep coming up in our head. And even though we try to squish them down or try to dissolve them, our experience has been so ingrained into our neural pathways that it really takes conscious effort to start thinking, oh, this is a great time. And Message in the Middle, a wonderful podcast, by the way, folks, talking about midlife. How do we get through that messy middle life and improve and find the tactics that will help us have a vibrant life? This is the wonderful Marianne. She says, love the work being done to shift the talk track around aging. Yes, mindset does matter. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in. And be sure to pop into the comments and enter the giveaway by using the word pro-aging, okay? And hopefully the StreamYard winner wheel will work at the end of the show, and someone will be the lucky winner of Keenagers. So this is when we talk about aging And we have all these stereotypes. And what I really hate is when they have older actors portraying, who are clearly in their early 70s, portraying someone in their early 60s. That can really get to me too. What are the what are the three most common misconceptions about aging that you've encountered and seen, and how do you help specifically folks challenge and overcome them? And we had a few examples that we talked about just then, but I think that, there's some examples, like you said, oh, you look great for your age. No, that is patronizing and condescending. What are some other examples that we can all sort of walk away with? Okay, how do we reframe this?
Well, so I think the things that I hear most often are the way I notice in people is the whole aging isn't happening to me. And again, it is happening to all of us. The other one, that your beliefs don't matter. And that is the thing, that is the hill I'm going to die on, in the sense that your beliefs matter, and they matter a great deal. So these internalized thoughts that we have, it's the culture has taught us this stuff, but we are responsible for what's going on in our own head, and trying to get people to pause and think about, why am I thinking that? Where did that come from? Is it true? Do I want to believe that? Or could I choose something different? Right. And we can get into all kinds of research about how all the things that come out of having that positive belief about aging, that it's all downhill, right? That's another very common kind of stereotype that we hear. And, the thing that I think I do the most is talk to people about it and try to point it out. It's amazing to me how many times I will go into a presentation and just ask the question, how many of you have ever even heard of ageism? And there will inevitably be one or two people in the room who don't even know what it is. They've never considered it. And I know that that's shocking to you. It's shocking to me, because we're in this world and we are kind of thinking about it all the time. But just raising that awareness culturally, but also individually, of kind of what it is and who experiences it and what it looks like when people, are experiencing it, and the things people say, right? Just that awareness is key. And I have seen a big change in the last few years in terms of the amount of talk there is about this, the amount of just things in the news media. Jane Fonda did a video here really recently about this.
With Ashton Applewhite.
Yeah.
And it rocks. So good.
Fantastic. And so things like that I have seen come out in the last few years that have really started to raise this awareness. There is still work to be done, for sure, but it is much more prevalent now than it has ever been before in terms of just cultural awareness. But I think that is the first step. So until we can get people to kind of be aware, and then also start thinking about their own thoughts and beliefs, and why do I think that? And, those kinds of things. That's the number one thing I do for people, is just make them think about, maybe that thing I've heard my whole life isn't true, right? Let's take a stereotype. Old people are depressed, right? When we actually have lots of research that people are their happiest in their 60s and their 70s. So, we can combat that. And what I also think is really interesting is when people who think that haven't been talking to people in their 60s and 70s, because if you really start to talk to people in their 60s and 70s, you find out that no, they're pretty happy, right? Their kids are grown, and they're if they're not at retirement, they're thinking about it, or maybe they're doing their second career, or they're off in whatever new adventure they want to do. And there's just so much that we think is going to happen as we get older that is just misconstrued. And if you really go talk to people, it's not the case.
I have to tell you, one of the side benefits of this podcast, Don't Be Caged by Your Age, is how many women in their late 40s and 50s who have come to me, and men too, and said, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so much better about these years. Before, I was just like, what am I going to do? Oh my gosh. And now I feel like, okay, I'm prepared. There's so much opportunity for me ahead in life. And that's very exciting. But I want to go ask you a few questions. about things I hear. So
Sure.
recently I splashed this wonderful image of me in a leather. I looked a little badass in it. And one of my friends said, "Oh my gosh, 68 is the new 48." Oh,
No,
geez. But
68 is the new 68.
exactly.
Yeah.
But how do I come back and say, thank you? Because I'm sure they meant it as a compliment,
Mhm.
but it's not. And I do want to use my impeccable words and say, instead of, slamming them down, what are your thoughts on that? How do I respond?
I mean, what I just said is what I would say. Like, thank you so much, but 68 is the new 68.
Exactly.
When I had my 48th birthday, so my last birthday, my daughter said, "Mom, you don't look 48." And she means it as a compliment. She does. And I just looked at her and I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "I look like a 48-year-old." I said, "You just have a stereotype of what you think 48 is supposed to look like. And it looks somehow worse than how I look." I don't
Right.
really know exactly what's in her head, right? But it's worse than how I currently look.
My gosh, she's like the perfect test subject for everything.
Well, this was actually, I have two daughters, and
Okay,
this was the older one. The Bruce Springsteen story was my younger one. But kids really do help in that, because they say things all the time, and they are quite honest with you about their opinions.
And so here's another thing I hear. I heard this all the time as a startup mentor also, and I hear it today, of course, which is old people can't do new things. And boy, does that drive you nuts, especially on social media, because we have our own awareness, we have our lived experiences, and they tend to like put us in this category. Oh my gosh, can you teach them how to use that smartphone? No, there are people who just don't like technology at every age, not just in the old age. How do we come back, especially because I'm always saying, excuse me, please check your ageism. Excuse me, we were coding and doing and building tech companies, from way back in 1970s. Please check your ageism. What would you say?
I got distracted by Jeanette Lenardi's
Well,
comment
good.
where she said, this is one 72-year-old. And I love that too, because if you've met one 72-year-old, you've met one 72-year-old. They're not all the same. Just like one 25-year-old is one 25-year-old. They're not all the same. Why do we think that as we grow older,
Oh my gosh,
we're somehow
how many 25-year-olds are really 50, right? Yeah. They just have an old soul or old everything. Yay. And Jeanette, thank you for throwing that out there.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, Mia, we're in this all the time. Mia is happily and proudly getting ready to celebrate her 60th birthday coming up in a minute, a few more months. And, she's always aged out loud and proud and been a wonderful example of that. But again, I'm sure, Mia, you're getting the same kind of quote compliments. Oh my God, Mia, you look so great. I am just one of the folks who are turning 60, as Jeanette said, for our age. And I look great for being 60.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? You just look great. Mm-hmm. Period. End of story, everyone. Drop it right there. But to go back to old people can't do new things.
Yeah.
This is also a message so many folks over 60 are telling themselves as well. Well, I'm afraid to do that. I can't do that. Look, I'm 68. I'm pulling up comments here. I'm doing all the things. Yeah, it's a lot to manage for basically anyone. Mm-hmm. But, we can do it. Folks are not just learning new things, but it's important for their brain to be learning new things, pulling on new threads, having new opportunities. And also, it is absolutely imperative and okay. And I give you permission, everybody, to explore after the age of 60 what lights you up.
Yeah. I think part of it becomes for, you hear this, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, or older adults don't want to learn technology, or whatever it is. All those kinds of stereotypes. So I think there's that. And if we hear that enough, we might start to internalize it, right? And then also, it might make us afraid of confirming a stereotype. So maybe I don't want to, I would like to apply for that promotion or that new position or to learn that new technology. But there's an internal part of me that is maybe a little bit afraid that if I don't do well at it, that people will think it's just because I'm older, right? So if a 25-year-old takes on new technology, a new task, or if me at 49, if I take on new technology and I don't get it right away and it takes me a little while, people may just say, oh, they'll tech, of course, tech's hard and you're going to have to play around with it some more and get used to it. As we get older, if that takes them the same amount of time or even a little longer, who knows, they may start to go, is it just because I'm old? Is it that I can't learn? Or is that even if I know, no, I can get this, I'm worried that that's what everybody else around me is thinking. That is something called stereotype threat. And when you get that activation going in your head, it actually takes up cognitive space. That worry that you are confirming a stereotype about your group in some way. And so it can actually slow you down even more, because not only are you trying to learn the new thing, you're also worrying, oh, I got to get this. I got to figure it out, because I don't want them to think I'm old and I can't get it. And so that is a real issue for people as they start to think about taking on challenges when they grow older. What will people think if I can't do it? And that is something we have to all overcome to take on those new challenges and those new risks as we get older. We basically just have to say, screw it. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to keep trying. If you guys think it takes me too long, that's your problem, not mine. And I'm going to do
Thank you. And again, Corinne, it's giving people permission. And folks, this is, and Jeanette, I'm wondering if this is part, and she's saying, thanks, so glad you're pointing out stereotype threat. So here's the scoop, folks. You want to try something new. You're going to be a beginner. And what happens is that we're perceived, well, we have all these decades behind us, we're a certain age, we should know everything already or something. I don't know. But in our heads, we're thinking, well, like, I'm going to lose. I won't win. It'll be hard because it's new. Take on that new beginner mentality. Like, ooh, I get to dive into something I've never done before. Writing a book, flying a plane, all the things that might be scary or within the scope of a job and a promotion. It's okay. There's a YouTube video for most everything out there, maybe not flying the plane, but there's all sorts of instructions and instructors out there to help you and mentors to help you get through your beginner stage with confidence. But don't stop learning new things. And before you know it, you're going to be able to show off in front of the younger folks and go, yeah, of course I knew that. You're not there yet.
Well, and like you said, one of the best things you can do for your brain is learn something new. And you don't want to take on something that is so frustrating that you want to scream or that you're going to give up immediately. Right. It needs to be just challenging enough that it's a little frustrating, and that will keep you engaged, right? But that is the best way to keep your brain forming new connections and keep it active. So never stop learning new things.
And folks, this is why once a month on a live stream, I have this live conversation with someone much younger than me. It's the intergenerational brain connections that Jeanette Liardi is always talking about, especially in her book, Aging Sideways. That is so important for us, that we get with folks who are thinking about things differently or processing information in different ways. And and sometimes it means you pick up on some new lingo, like spill the tea. Yeah, I'm still not sure I'm comfortable saying all of that, but I know Mia Voss is always good at being hip at whatever anybody in their 20s and 30s is saying. But, you're understanding the lens from which folks of different ages are looking out at life through, and it opens up your own eyes. And meanwhile, you're doing the same for them. You're showing how you're viewing the world, and they're like, oh my gosh. But what Jeanette has shared with us, and you've probably learned this too, Corinne, is that in companies, this is where the real ageism is happening, because they think that ambition stops at the age of 50. They don't need to invest in you anymore. And they're frankly wasting generations of talent with that mentality. But what Jeanette has proven in her stats is that the older brain combined with the younger brain saves companies time, money, they're more efficient, they're more productive, and as a result, they're more profitable.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about the intergenerational relationships?
Oh no, I couldn't agree more. The companies that are not utilizing the skill sets of all the different generations are losing out, because you've got skills. There was a study, this is an older study, but it was one where went back when hotels still took reservations over the phone all the time. And they did a study of looking at the hotel reservation rate of the older workers versus the younger ones. And what they found was that the younger people could take more reservations per hour. They were faster, right? They could get it done. But the older workers had more reservations where the people actually came and stayed at the hotel. And when they tried to figure out why is that, why do the young people have all the cancellations and the older people have the people who actually follow through and stay at the hotel, they went back and listened to the calls. The older workers listened. They asked questions about, why are you coming? How many people? What are your interests? Like, to make sure that the person got the right hotel, got the right room, got what they needed, knew where all the local amenities were, that kind of thing. So that connection meant that reservation was better, even though they both just booked rooms, right? But that reservation was better because that person got that personal touch, the connection, got everything they needed. And I think that is such a great example of the power of the workforce that we're dealing with here. The young people can do things fast, but older folks can do things with that interpersonal touch.
Right.
And what did the hotel really want? They didn't want bookings that didn't come in. They wanted bookings that came and stayed. And so, different skill sets, but all valuable. That's the power of having multiple different generations in your workforce.
Yeah, I was talking with someone on the show about how, as a consultant, he went in and they were all talking about a problem, and he was like, well, duh, it's obvious, the solution. And he shared it, and they were like, oh my God, we never would have thought of that. But because they hadn't made all the mistakes he'd made already, and done all the things.
All that life experience, it'll teach you things.
It really will. And Mia, my gosh, this is so funny. Mia says, that was me at the gym yesterday trying to learn double under jump rope. Is that Mia? That's so great. And Jeanette saying, wow, I'm unaware of that hotel study. Thanks for sharing it. Oh yeah, you smarty pants gals, sharing the information is so, so good. And Dr. Krista's jumping off, but we'll come back and thanking, Dr. Corinne and myself for a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Krista. I know you're doing incredible work regarding organizations and behavior and board members, et cetera. So thank you for your work in the world. Whew. We have really hit on so many great topics. And of course, it's just the tip of the iceberg, but at least we've got folks thinking. Where are you on your journey right now, Dr. Corinne? What new opportunities or projects are on your horizon? How may we add wind to your sails, even though, we're going to be promoting your book everywhere we glow, Keenagers, telling a new story about aging. And everybody will be following you, of course, on Instagram at Keenagers Book. What's exciting on your horizon?
So I am going to have to follow back up with you, because my goal for the year is to start a podcast and to start talking, continuing this discussion about aging. So I'm still working on the finer details of that. I'm also doing a lot of public speaking. And as you mentioned, I'm going to be at On Aging this year. And so trying to do that, get the word out. And then I obviously have the care management business local to Greensboro, North Carolina. So we're here doing that, but also looking at Keenagers coaching. You and I were talking before the call about how we do not give people, as they approach retirement, a plan, right? We do so much planning for going to college, right? You go to college for 4 years and we spend all this time planning and preparing. I think giving some structure to planning for older adulthood, planning for retirement, beyond financial planning. We should be planning for our social life, for our emotional life, for our purpose. What are we going to do, or what are we going to have to do that's going to make us want to get out of bed on a Wednesday morning? Because there are so many people that I encounter that are still vibrant and want to do things, but they feel like what society is saying to them is, oh, it's time to retire. We don't really need you anymore. Go off and have your vacation, which they do want to do, but they still want purpose. And it's navigating or negotiating, how do I keep getting meaning in my life while also being in a society that's kind of looking at me going, aren't you done yet? Right? Aren't you ready to go?
Move right along. We only want the new and improved model, please.
That's right. It's amazing to me how many people I talk to are struggling in that. And so that's something we're working on too.
Oh, that sounds so much fun. And I know from my own experience and talking to folks, first of all, you're going to love podcasting. It is the most rewarding experience. And as I'm always saying to podcasters, your podcast is the gateway for opportunity, whatever that looks like, right? The opportunity to have meaningful conversations, meaningful connections. And it's why we talk about how community is so important in the aging process. Who are you going to go hang out with? Yeah, this is why I formed the New England Podcasters Group, because podcasters are so much fun to hang out with. And maybe you'll come down to Orlando for PodFest next January, because that's a fun place and space to be. Well, I am so grateful that you came and shared your wisdom with us. I'm going to try to do this giveaway tool. I don't know if it worked, everybody, but I'll find another way. If it doesn't look like it was really, I don't know what happened. It's not doing its winner spinner thing. So darn it all. I'll put it into something else, because usually when you do it, you just have to hit a button and it spins. So I'll talk to the StreamYard folks and find out what happened.
I think that means it must mean free books for everybody. Right?
There we go. Yeah. Everyone's a winner. Oh my gosh. But I want to make sure that folks follow you everywhere you glow, and, add wind to your sails. Connect with Dr. Corrine on LinkedIn, on Instagram, everybody. Check out her book, Keenagers, and keep this conversation going, because we all have so much to give, but reframing what we have to give over the age of 60 is so important. And I'm delighted that we had the live viewers tuning in. Thank you so much for your wonderful comments today. And you added so much to the conversation. And folks who are tuning in later, both video and audio, thank you for joining this important pro-aging movement, where we focus on shattering age-related expectations and stereotypes while providing the resources, inspirations, and ideas that you need to thrive after 65 and to shift your own indoctrinated messages about what this period of time is looking like, because you have so much more to give. We are not done with you. And I don't want you to let those internalized ageist beliefs prevent you from pursuing new dreams and opportunities. Grab that torch and keep it brightly lit for future generations. That's what this pro-aging movement is all about. Any last words for folks, Dr. Corrine?
Mind your thoughts. They matter.
Oh my gosh, that's perfect. Mind your thoughts. They matter. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm so grateful you're here. I'm blowing you kisses, mwah, filled with appreciation from Boston. And thank you again, Dr. Corrine, for this outstanding conversation.
Thanks for having me.